Oxford from the inside. The good, the bad, but always the truth.
Hi everyone, I'm Megan, I use she, her pronouns, and welcome to today's episode of Oxford from the Inside, the good, the bad, but always the truth. And today we're joined by Siam. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi guys, I'm Siam, he, him pronouns, and I'm third year chemist at Trinity College. Also one of the interviewers alongside Megan for Oxford.
Well, welcome to the show, the other side of the microphone, I guess. And on today's quickfire questions episode, we're going to be talking about how to deal with stress. So, Siam, exams are coming up, no pressure. How do you deal with stress?
Um, okay, so I'm gonna a few disclaimers. This isn't the most this isn't the most pragmatic way of dealing with stress. There's one of the things here. If you're like feeling stressed today, one of them might help, but really this is a long burner way of dealing with stress. This has taken me a few years of like letting the ideas permeate and like seep into me and me to live with it. And now I'm like cashing in the results, I guess. But in terms of like pragmatic day-to-day things, if you're feeling stressed right now or tomorrow or very soon, maybe the other videos will help. Yeah, so that's my disclaimer. So I guess in the yeah, there's a few things here, but I guess to start off with, in a broadly, if I'm feeling stressed, or I guess I don't tend to, I guess I don't tend to really get stressed anymore. Not really, as a thing. I do. I mean, obviously, I'm human, and some things do stress me out, but not really. I guess I got to a point where I've been doing these, like I know, thinking about life in these certain ways that now I just don't really get stressed. I guess one of those things of how I think about when I approach life is, I guess, like my perspective on things. And I think if you can have the habit of viewing life through a certain perspective, then you will still be stressed today and you'll still be stressed tomorrow. But over time, it will like dampen down and you will like encourage yourself to, remind yourself that things are going to be okay, I guess. So I guess for me, in terms of what I mean by perspective is, say, okay, so I've got finals exams coming up quite soon, and they're stress worthy, I guess. And for me, if I say that's something quite stressful and I'm feeling a bit stressed, and I'll ask myself, well, will the world end? Like, will the world end if I didn't do well in my finals? And like, what is the worst case scenario? So if I was to fail all my finals, and I guess I wouldn't pass my degree, but that's about it really. I could still get plentiful jobs. I could still strive for jobs where I earn enough money to live. My degree doesn't change that. I'll still be alive. I still have, my whole body, thank God, or the universe. Interesting question that, but that's that's all part together. Yeah, and I guess I've got all the things to be grateful for. I guess it's that, like, having that perspective of like looking at the worst case scenario of what you're stressed about and realizing the worst case scenario isn't too bad, um, is one of the ways I deal with stress. When having the caveat to that is when people tell me things that they're stressed about and the worst case scenario does seem quite difficult. That doesn't really work for that. I think that's a really tough situation. Anyone's in that, I really feel for them. But for me, finals exams does not warrant that. It's just not that deep. Also, I don't want to sell myself short, so I'm going to try my absolute best. But yeah, I think changing your perspective on things. Yeah, seeing the worst case scenario and is it really that bad? Is the world going to end? And I guess the flip side to that, to add to your perspective, I think sometimes I'll write down all the things that I've got to be grateful for, and that will reduce my stress because I'm stressed about this thing, but then I'll remind myself of all the things I've got to be grateful for that I guess I take for granted every day, and then you compare them, and you just like really face with this reality that things could be worse, basically. I mean, the more stressed I am, the deeper I have to go into like deeper things that I'm really grateful for, I guess. There's this nice YouTube video for this, like, I guess, guru who did this like little, I guess not algorithm, but like little decision process about how he thinks he doesn't worry. And I know that really stayed with me for a long time. And how he described it was, you've got a problem, and you're stressed. And he says, and you're stressed. You can either can you solve the problem or not? If you can solve the problem, then I guess do it. If you actually can't solve the problem, it seems, then why worry? If you can't solve the problem, then why worry as well? I guess it's like if you can't, the idea is that you've got this problem and you're trying to solve it, and if you can't, then trying to get to a place of acceptance with that. And if you can't right now, but in the future, if you can now but you don't have the energy, I guess you really, when you go through the motions of this thought process, I guess it helps me not to worry. I'd either do something or don't do it, and I'm fine with that. If I'm feeling too emotional or too overwhelmed in the moment, then I won't worry about the activity that needs to be done, and I'll leave that for tomorrow, because I guess I'll just like reach a point where I accept that I can't do that now. We could add that link in the description, because I think that I butchered his idea.
I was going to ask, but that sounds like it'd be good to watch.
It's only like a minute long as well, and he's very charismatic, and it's great. And so now, going on with this theme, so this book did it change my life? Yeah, I guess so, but very slowly, so I can't really notice how it has. But this book is The Daily Stoic. So I bought it a few years, like 2 years ago, and there's a page for every single day, and I've read it for 1 year and then started again, and this is my third time going. And now it's actually at first I thought it was like mind-blowing, and now it's coming quite trivial, because I've read it. I remember the last time I read it, so I guess that means that the ideas have seeped into me. And you might ask, like, so what is Stoicism? And Stoicism is it's an idea where it's a philosophy where you can't control the external world, but you can control the internal world. So you can't. It's not about what happens to you, but it's about how you respond to that, and how even if that means you, from a surface level, don't do anything, but you come to an acceptance of how the world affects you. And that's like really tough. That doesn't happen overnight. And I'm still trying to work out and practice having acceptance with really difficult times. But this book gives you a page of like an insight from one of the main Stoic philosophers, and then there's like a quote from there, and then the author's interpretation of that. And you read a page a day, and each page has a different lesson, and then you can read it again, like I have, and again. And so I guess now that I'm reading it for the third time, though the way of like seeing the world, that I can control how I respond, but I can't control what happens to me, is just almost in my DNA now. People ask me, oh, when do you think the pandemic will end? And it's genuinely a question that just hasn't gone through my mind. Like, that would be the first time I would have thought of that question. And I'll ask myself, like, how come I haven't thought about that? And it's just because I know that I can't change when the pandemic ends. So just in my nature now, I've just coached myself to not ask those questions that I have no control over. But I can control how I'm going to use all of this extra time that I have because of the pandemic. And even if that's just self-care, it doesn't mean I'm going to be really productive. So yeah, that book, Stoicism, it's very rational and theoretical. But so on the other, yeah. So but it's also very easy to read. I'd say I'd recommend it to anyone who might find it interesting. And then the most pragmatic thing that is the next idea is I really like mindfulness and meditation. I really like Headspace. This is the one I use, the app. I think I really treasure being able to fall into the present moment and be really present in, I guess, like I strive to do in anything that I do, but that's really hard. But I do find, if you're really stressed, um, being able to like fall into the present moment and not think about the future or the past is amazing, because it's hard to be, if you're really present, you won't be thinking about your future problems or the past things that you've done, and you won't be stressed. Like, you'll be less stressed. And then there's like other meditation techniques where you can like sort of observe your thoughts, and then you're sort of like separate to and then you can see this yourself, you can see you who is stressed, and then you are also seeing that, and you can like compare like with past selves of like, oh, I'm stressed because of this thing that happens all the time, and you can sort of be aware that this is something normal that happens a lot, and then you can compare that every other time that has happened is going to be okay. And like, it's easier to do that through meditation, or even if it's like going for a walk and you just need to clear your head, whatever, or like go for a run or exercise. It doesn't have to be sitting still. Anything that helps you be present or clear your mind. And this book, I know plenty, like lots of counselors have recommended this book to people that they talk to, is called The Happiness Trap. So it's a book. It's a lot of it. There's a lot of meditation techniques in there, but it's a cognitive-based therapy encouraged book. So in what I mean by that is, if you're feeling stressed, in that book, there's lots of pragmatic, actual routines and tasks and things that you can do that might help you be less stressed. And you can as you read the book, you can pick and choose which ones feel good for you. And it also describes and explains why they work. It's not just telling you things that you should do, but it also says that, this might help you see things or feel things in a different way when you're feeling bad. That so you can like, even if you don't agree or it doesn't help for you, you can definitely see where they're coming from, and you can definitely see how this could help. So like one of them is like, if you're observing yourself, and you might have written down different kinds of narratives that you live through. So I know one narrative for me is being stressed when I open a new past paper, because I can't do any of the questions, and I could really get
yeah.
And I can really get involved in that moment and be really stressed, or I can sort of like take a deep breather and recognize that this process has happened about 30-40 times in every single past paper every single exam that I've done. And the exams tend to go well at the end, or they might not so well, but like, this is normal. And the book helps with that particular exercise as well, and other exercises. I think meditation. I think this book is just like lots of advice, really, but the meditation is really actually pragmatic. It's you can feel the difference afterwards. Sometimes when someone tells you advice and you don't really feel it or resonate with it, it just goes through one ear and out the other. It's only that moment when you finally realize and understand, and you might realize that people have been telling you this the whole time, but it was one, yeah. The meditation one is more of a pragmatic behavior. You actually might feel less stressed afterwards, whereas the Stoicism one is like a slow burner that will like impermeate through your mind. And the last thing, this one was actually, I watched Shawshank Redemption recently, and I've watched it multiple times, but I saw the ending in a different light this time. And I think if you're stressed, and if you haven't watched the film, I definitely recommend The Shawshank Redemption. Is an amazing film. And I guess that one of the lessons in that film, which I really come to really love, is if you're stressed because your situation seems quite despairing, we're going quite deep now. Your situation seems quite despairing and the future seems quite murky. One thing that the film teaches, and I think I really believe in actually, is that hope is a good thing, and that you should that if you have it, that if you feel quite hopeless, that I don't know, even if it feels like, and I think you should try to be like trying your best to be hopeful for the future, even if it seems very optimistic and far-fetched. But the thing about being hopeful for the future is you will hope for one thing, and then for that, I don't know, that idea to happen, then it will help you create a new future world. Like you'll hope for other things and then other things, and it's sort of like a catalyst. You then all of a sudden you're through hoping for one thing, you're hoping for this vision now for the future. And there's those like beautiful visions and futures that will keep you going out of those despairing moments. Whereas if you were too stoic about it, if you were like, oh no, there's no point in hoping because that's such a far away idea and it's not going to help you now, doesn't give you like that ray of sunshine at the end of the tunnel to look for. So I definitely think I think in a different book, like they said that, you know, if you're going to wish something on someone, optimism would be the best thing, and I think there's a lot of truth in that. Yeah, if you're optimistic, if you're hopeful for the future, yeah, it helps the stress in those despairing times. And yeah, that's everything from me.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I got a couple. Well, I was going to say just on that last point, some people call it like optimistic nihilism. You know, it's the idea that there's a really good quote, which is that if nothing we do matters, then all that matters is what we do. Right? It's about saying, well, I can't change the world, and me being stressed about this thing isn't going to be the end of the world, right? And in the same way, you can't change the world, but that doesn't mean that there's nothing to look forward to. You know, just because it's awful right now and you're stressed and there are all these problems, you can still say, well, you know, even if it's like, I'm going to go on a walk tomorrow, or I'm going to buy myself an ice cream tomorrow, like there are things to look forward to and things to hold out hope for.
Yeah, I guess to give like an example, so say like, I know, tomorrow doesn't look that rosy, and then like, I know, then you think, okay, I could go for a walk tomorrow, and then I could go for an ice cream, and then, or maybe I could like go for a walk with a friend, and maybe I can go for more walks in the future and more walks of ice creams, and then eventually the pandemic will end, and you can be hopeful for all the other places in the world you can go for walks on, and then you can do other things other than walking, and all of that was like in a few seconds, and all of that happened from just being hopeful for going for a walk tomorrow. Like you can really paint a picture of life that you want to live through by being hopeful, and then none of that would happen if you weren't hopeful.
And I think it's also important to note that obviously that's kind of more of a long term, but mindfulness is, at least personally, I find it very useful in the short term. If I'm stressed right now and you need to remove yourself from the situation, but I think it's important to note that there are so many different forms of mindfulness. Again, personally, I find like the mindfulness podcasts and CDs, I find them very annoying, and I really struggle to get into it. But there are other ways to practice mindfulness that aren't lying down listening to a CD. You know, there's mindful eating, mindful. You know, you can exercise mindfully, even if it's just a couple of seconds. Sit down, breathe, focus. It doesn't have to be, you know, it doesn't have to be the apps, and it doesn't have to be the CDs. There are so many ways, and if it's something that you think would help, which it has been suggested for certain anxieties and certain other mental health conditions, there are other forms of mindfulness. If you find one of them annoying or difficult, there are others you can try as well. It's not like a one-stop shop.
I fully agree. Yeah,
it's really, really individual. So find what works for you. And I think I also just wanted to reiterate a point that you made. It was quite in the beginning, But I think it's really important because, at least for me personally, it's something that I struggle with, right? It's leave the problem for tomorrow. If you are, it's like, as you were saying, can you solve it and can you not solve it? Not being able to solve it also includes being too overwhelmed and being too tired and being emotionally exhausted. That counts as not being able to solve the problem. Like, it's not just this problem is unsolvable. It's right now I am not in a state that I can solve the problem. And very few things have to be dealt with immediately. Most things can be left for the morning. Like, it's completely fine for you to say, I'm actually not in a place where I can deal with this, so I'm just going to remove myself from it. And that's like, it's quite important to be able to do that.
I fully agree.
Yeah, and I guess what I wanted to ask was, you talked a lot, obviously, about long-term changes, and how the what was it, the happiness trap? That's more of the short-term fixes to stress. You don't have to answer it might be a bit personal, but just I was wondering, what do you do if you find yourself, you found out something, you're really stressed about it? How would you personally go about de-stressing in the moment?
So I mean, the happiness trap also helps the short term, but also helps the long term, I guess, because it slowly change your way of life, this way of thinking, I guess, where you'll be able to be full present more, observe yourself more. And so how do I deal with stress? I guess one thing I should have said is that these things are long term, but if you do them long enough, they become your everyday. So so overall, in terms of, so every day by day, by doing these things, reading these things, practicing, making that habitual, acted a habit of looking at life these ways, means that in my day to day, I'm quite a calm person. And I guess that's how it's affected me day to day. So it's quite rare for me to get stressed. And when I do get stressed, there's quite a lot of times when I'm working. If I'm working or playing badminton's different. Badminton actually helps with the stress, but I can recognize I'm playing worse in badminton if I haven't done this. I'll be working and I'm feeling quite fidgety. I can tell which days I haven't meditated and which days I have. And if I'm feeling stressed, I would encourage myself to go and meditate, go for a walk. I definitely like to clear my mind. Writing, I love writing. I write quite a lot. And if I'm stressed, and I can't identify why I'm stressed, then I would write, because then I can put it on paper, especially for things that don't seem to be that deep, but it feels huge, and there's a disconnect. And if I can write it, then I can see how it's connected, like how it might on the surface level don't seem that big, but to me, I can see why it's having such an impact. So writing, walks, meditating, because the meditating basically just helps me, I guess, like bring perspective on the things. Or if you're I guess any activity that you can fall in the present moment. If you can fall in the present moment really well and stay there for a long time, then that's quite a quick, really good thing to do to de-stress, because if you're really in the present moment, you're not thinking about the future or the past. Some people at sport, they're very competitive, and once they get on the court, that's what they're doing and nothing else. They forget about the exams and revision, and sometimes you need that. I guess if it's about people or like a situation, talking to friends, like a call in the evening with a friend, just talking at people, like just like venting, asking people asking for validation for your stress, even though like theoretically, like your stress is obviously always validated, but it's also just nice when someone's like, no, yeah, like when someone says like, "Oh, that sounds really stressful," and you're like, "Thank you," like, yes,
Yeah.
it is really stressful.
Yeah.
It's really nice that you said that, because I think that's I think if I'm really stressed, I'll try to grab hold of a hand that's reached out, whatever form it is. There's activities, mindfulness, friends, writing. Yeah, like do self-care for sure, 100%. Self-care in the immediate moment, because I wouldn't continue work personally. I don't think that's healthy.
Yeah, and I kind of a point you're making, that if you're stressed about something maybe quite small in quotation marks, that feels objectively small, but to you is personally quite small. Sometimes, as you're saying, if you unpick it and understand it, it's actually not that thing that's making you stressed. You've been at 99 out of 100 for a couple of weeks, and it's this one thing that's tipped you over. But it's about understanding everything that's led up to that point that can help you unpick, actually, yeah, this is stressful, but what's really been stressing me is this. And then you can go to a friend and just, oh, I'm feeling really horrible about this and this, and they go, oh, that sounds really awful. And you're like, yeah, it's been really horrible. It is just what you need sometimes. Like you don't, obviously it's good for you to be able to manage your own feelings, but it's fine if you need some help with that and you just want some validation in, yeah, I'm feeling horrible. That's really important as well. So yeah, thank you so much. Is there any last comments you wanted to add?
No, I think that was everything.
Great.
Well, I'm happy I got some pragmatic stuff in there.
And I will, people listening, I will put those books in the description so you guys can check them out as well if you're interested. Yeah. And yeah, well, thank you, Siam, for joining us. Thank you so much. Very philosophical discussion on stress.
Yes.
Long-term solutions. We're giving you guys long-term solutions, hopefully. Sorry if you're currently stressed. Do I have some chocolate? But yeah, thank you for listening. I hope it was helpful, and that you guys maybe read the books if you're interested, or watch the video that we'll also put a link for. Do check it out. And thank you for listening or for watching this if you're on YouTube. And until next time, stay safe. Bye-bye.